Have you ever wanted to explore the British Isles, to experience English heritage, Irish spirits, Welsh pride, and Scottish resilience, all in a single journey? In this video, I have pulled together the highlights of my Viking British Isles Explorer journey, the moments that moved me, surprised me, and made me grateful I was there. And after each one, a tip that will help you make the most of your own journey. So let's start where the voyage began, London. We were barely into the Tower of London tour when we heard it, a deep guttural sound from somewhere in the courtyard. Not what you expect inside one of the world's most famous landmarks. The ravens. At least 6 ravens must live at the tower at all times by royal decree. Legend says if they ever leave, the tower and the kingdom will fall. Each one has a dedicated raven master, a yeoman warder whose entire role is looking after them. This place carries more history than almost anywhere on Earth. Anne Boleyn was imprisoned and executed here. Sir Walter Raleigh spent 13 years as a prisoner. The Beefeaters have guarded its secrets for over 5 centuries, and the crown jewels have been protected here since the 14th century. Then we reached them, St. Edward's crown, used at coronations of British monarchs for centuries. The Cullinan one, 530 carats, the largest clear-cut colorless diamond in the world. The Koh-i-Noor, one of the most famous and controversial gems on Earth. The Tower of London draws millions of visitors every year. We walked straight in, no queue at all. One of the most common questions I get about this voyage is when to go. Late spring and early autumn are the sweet spots, mild temperatures, beautiful landscapes, and far fewer crowds than peak summer. In summer, the days are long and light until late evening, which is magical, but the crowds are real. What made our voyage truly special is that because we sailed in spring, the early season of the British itinerary, Viking Neptune was the only cruise ship at every single port. No competing crowds, no rushing. That quiet exclusivity changed everything. From London, the ship sailed overnight. By morning, we were in Dover. There are places in the world that stop you completely. The White Cliffs of Dover is one of them. We had a free morning before our afternoon excursion, so we took a taxi to the National Trust site at the top of the cliffs. I have seen them on television many times. Standing on them is something else entirely. The green grass, the white chalk path, the sea breeze, the sound of the waves somewhere far below. No screen prepares you for the scale of it, or the feeling. These cliffs rise over 100 meters above the English Channel, the closest point between Britain and continental Europe, just 21 miles of open water to France. During World War II, thousands of soldiers were evacuated from the beaches of Dunkirk in France across this very stretch of water. For those soldiers, seeing those white walls rising through the mist meant one thing: they had survived. There is a reason these cliffs move people to tears. Standing there, I understood it completely. We walked an hour along the cliff top to the South Foreland Lighthouse, where in 1899 Marconi received the world's first international radio transmission, sent across the channel from France. Only because of the port talk the night before did we know to come here in the morning. It was mentioned that because of the ship's route, Dover would be reached before sunrise. The White Cliffs would be in the dark. The port talk, whether you attend in person at the Star Theatre or watch it on Viking TV in your stateroom, is one of the most valuable things you can do each day. It walks you through what to expect at the next destination, excursion details, local insights, and practical things to watch out for. It answers questions you did not even know you had. In Dublin, we visited the Jameson Distillery, Bow Street. Founded in 1780, Jameson Irish whiskey has survived wars, famines, economic collapse, and a century of changing tastes. And on every bottle, 2 Latin words, sine metu, without fear. The experience begins with a film projected from above down onto the center table, the story of Jameson told in light and sound before you even reach the first barrel. From there, the guide walks you through the grain to glass process, how barley is malted, how triple distillation creates a smoothness that sets Irish whiskey apart from all others, how time in bourbon and sherry casks builds depth and character. At every step, something new engages your senses. You never quite know what is coming next. Then the tasting. Three expressions side by side: Jameson Original, Black Barrel, and the Distillery Edition, available only here at Bow Street. And here is the connection that stopped me completely. John Jameson's great-grandson was Guglielmo Marconi, the inventor of the radio, the same Marconi whose first international transmission was received at the South Foreland Lighthouse, which we had visited the day before in Dover. History has a way of connecting itself. Dublin is a tender port. The ship anchors offshore and smaller boats bring you to the dock. From there, a complimentary shuttle bus takes you into the city center. Whether you are on an independent tour or a Viking guided excursion, always take a picture of the shuttle bus schedule before you head out. One simple habit, and you can plan your day with complete confidence. Holyhead, Wales. It sits on the Isle of Anglesey, an island with its own ancient language, its own identity, and its own extraordinary producers. Our first stop was Bragdy Cybi, a microbrewery founded by husband and wife Dan and Bethan. The brewery logo shows a bearded face. Naturally, everyone assumes it is Dan. We did too, but Dan had no beard when the logo was created. That beard is actually hops flower. Nobody saw that coming. Then the beers, 3 of them, and the dark one stopped us all. It is called Moorish, a clever Welsh play on the word moor, which means sea. Rich, complex, deeply satisfying, with a secret ingredient: Welsh seaweed. Alongside the beers, Dan served Welsh cakes with butter, Patagonia black cake, and a locally produced cheddar that was honestly one of the finest cheeses I have ever tasted. He shared not just his beer, he shared his language, his culture, his pride. Then we visited Halen, the Anglesey sea salt factory, a brand I had never heard of until that day. Table salt, the one most of us use every day, contains anti-caking agents that affect its purity and taste. Traditional European sea salts are more natural, but many pick up clay from the evaporation ponds where they are produced. And most salt producers skip one important step: removing the calcium carbonate that becomes trapped in the crystals during production. That is what causes the bitter aftertaste you sometimes notice in salt. Halen does things differently. The seawater comes from the exceptionally pure Menai Strait, filtered naturally through a mussel bed and sandbank before it ever reaches the factory. No clay evaporation ponds, no anti-caking agents, and every batch of crystals is rinsed in brine to remove the calcium carbonate. We compared Halen against other salts. The difference was immediate. It has been served at royal weddings, at the Olympics, and in the kitchens of the world's most celebrated chefs. Some people worry that ocean cruising does not give you enough time at each port to truly experience the culture, but a well-designed cruise does not try to show you everything. Think of each port as a sampler. The best voyages leave you with a list of reasons to go back. That is not a limitation. That is the beauty of ocean cruising. Liverpool, the city that gave the world the Beatles. We booked the Beatles' famous walking tour as an independent excursion. Our guide was Mike, a writer who has published more than 60 books, including one dedicated entirely to the Beatles' Liverpool. At the entrance of the Liverpool Beatles Museum, 6 names are written across the doors: Pete, Ringo, John, Paul, George, and Stuart. Then the Cavern Club. The Beatles played here almost 300 times, but one ordinary afternoon in 1961 became the most important of all. A local record shop owner named Brian Epstein walked down those stairs out of curiosity. He left as their manager. One visit, everything changed. The surprises kept coming. The Rolling Stones played here, and so did Queen, Elton John, and Adele. This basement never stopped finding new stories to tell. On the wall outside, something I never expected, a plaque connecting Liverpool to Mississippi. The blues that inspired the Beatles traveled across an ocean before it ever reached this street. Mike stopped us at the Wall of Fame. Gold discs, one for every Liverpool number one. These are just a few of the places Mike took us to visit. However much you think you know about the Beatles, there is more waiting to be found. The tour ends at the waterfront, four bronze figures walking together, the Royal Liver Building rising behind them, and our ship was just a short walk away. Sometimes you may not be able to join a Viking excursion. It may be sold out, or the schedule may not align with your plans. One workaround is to book an independent excursion with a local guide. Ideally, book at least a day or two in advance. You can find the ship's location, back on board time, and contact information in the Viking Daily. Be sure to return to the ship on time. At Belfast, our excursion took us to the Giant's Causeway, Northern Ireland's only UNESCO World Heritage Site, and nothing prepares you for it. 40,000 interlocking basalt columns rising from the sea. About 60 million years ago, a vast lake of molten lava cooled here so slowly and evenly that as it contracted, it cracked into hexagons. Nature's most efficient way to divide a surface into equal cells with minimal boundary. The same shape and the same reason that honeycombs form. Ranging from a few centimeters to 12 meters tall, fitting together so precisely they look engineered. Walking among them with the North Atlantic crashing around you, the scale of it becomes real. The legend says an Irish giant named Finn McCool built this causeway to challenge a Scottish rival across the sea. Whether you believe the geology or the legend, both leave you standing there in silence. Viking shore excursions are labeled with excursion type, activity level, features, and what is included. Consider these labels before you book. The Giant's Causeway was marked as moderate activity level. In my opinion, if you choose to climb on the rocks and walk close to the sea, it can be physically demanding. The surfaces are uneven, they can be slippery when wet, and the wind can be strong. Wear appropriate footwear and take your time. The National Trust team will be on site to ensure visitor safety and assist with any inquiries. The experience is worth every careful step. Orkney Islands, one of the most ancient places on Earth, and one that surprised us in ways we never expected. Our excursion took us to the Ring of Brodgar, a perfect circle of ancient stones placed here between 2500 and 2000 BC. No burial evidence, no confirmed astronomical alignment, originally 60 stones, transported to this site by Neolithic communities working together. 27 stones remain today. I wanted to get closer to touch them. That is not allowed. I accepted it, and it changed nothing. Standing at the edge of that circle, cloudy sky above, wind coming off the loch, I felt completely calm. A connection to people whose names we will never know, who stood in the same place and felt something we cannot fully translate. Then, walking through Kirkwall, the capital of the Orkney Islands, I discovered Dr. John Ray, born right here in Orkney in 1813, a surgeon, an explorer, and one of the most unjustly forgotten figures in Arctic history. For centuries, explorers believed there was a route through the Arctic, connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific, but one crucial piece was missing. The problem was Victoria Strait, the water running along the western side of King William Island, choked with pack ice, impossible to navigate. Sir John Franklin tried to push through it in 1845 with 2 ships and 129 men. None of them survived. What nobody knew was that on the eastern side of King William Island, there was a narrow channel, protected from the pack ice by the island itself. That channel is Ray Strait. It creates a navigable route that completely bypasses the deadly ice of Victoria Strait. Ray discovered it in 1854. Decades later, the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen used Ray Strait to become the first person to successfully navigate the Northwest Passage. Dr. John Ray is buried at St. Magnus Cathedral, right here in Kirkwall. Scotland's climate is shaped by the Gulf Stream. Snow in the Highlands is rare, but the wind is relentless, making it feel colder than it is, even in summer. A good windbreaker and dressing in layers is essential. Edinburgh. There is no city quite like it. Every corner is a story. The city holds its history without making a museum of itself. We joined a walking tour through the old town, and the layers came one after another. Look down at the cobblestones near St. Giles Cathedral, and you find the heart of Midlothian, a heart-shaped mosaic marking the site of Edinburgh's old Tolbooth prison. Local tradition says to spit on it for good luck. And look up at the wall nearby. A brass plate marks the site of the last public execution in Edinburgh in 1864. Through an archway into Riddle's Court on the Lawn Market, and you are back in 1598. The year King James VI and Anne of Denmark dined at a royal banquet in this very courtyard, one of the oldest surviving closes in Edinburgh. For Outlander fans, step into Tweeddale Court. Today, it is a peaceful hidden courtyard, home to a section of the King's Wall dating back to the 15th century. In Season 3, it was transformed into a busy 18th century marketplace, the scene where Claire accompanies Jamie shortly after their reunion, and where they encounter Fergus, the orphan boy who is like a son to Jamie. And then the bagpiper, standing on the Royal Mile in full Highland dress, playing into the wind. The Great Highland Bagpipe was classified as an instrument of war in the UK until 1996. And above it all, Edinburgh Castle, crowning the skyline from its ancient volcanic rock. It has watched over this city for centuries. Everything below it carries that same weight of history. For an itinerary this rich in culture, here is what I would recommend. Research your destinations before you arrive. It sounds simple, but it makes all the difference. When you already know something about a place, you connect differently. You notice more. You feel more. The difference between a tour and a journey is preparation. Aberdeen, the offshore oil capital of Europe. Our excursion took us to Dunnottar Castle, but what most people do not expect is that the journey to the castle is just as extraordinary as the castle itself. We began in Stonehaven, a quiet harbour town on the Aberdeenshire coast. Then we walked, 2 miles along the clifftop above the North Sea. Rolling green hills on one side, sheer cliffs dropping straight into the water on the other, sheep and cattle grazing under the sun, the Highland breeze constant in our faces. Along the way, the Black Hill War Memorial. Built after World War I, more names added after World War II. And then the castle appeared, fortified for over 2,000 years. Vikings attacked it. William Wallace captured it. Mary Queen of Scots once stayed within these walls. Perched on a sheer rock above the North Sea, surrounded by water on 3 sides, the castle looks like something from a fairy tale. This is Scotland at its most raw and beautiful. There are 2 times associated with every shore excursion. One is the meets at time, shown on the Viking Daily. The other is the departure time, shown on the Viking Voyager app. Always use the meets at time to know when to gather at the designated area. That gives you enough buffer to get prepared, because the excursion starts at the departure time sharp. The Shetland Islands, the most remote stop of the entire voyage. Closer to Norway than to London, and from the moment the ship approached the harbor, the landscape told you immediately that you were somewhere unlike anywhere else. Rolling hills, dramatic cliffs above the Atlantic, wind turbines turning against a perfect blue sky, mussel farms sitting quietly in the still water below, a profound, uncomplicated peace that you feel before you even step ashore. Shetland ponies have lived on these islands for over 4,000 years, the smallest horse breed in Britain, no taller than 42 inches, and yet pound for pound the strongest equine on earth. In the 19th century, when a law was passed banning women and children from hauling coal in the mines, thousands of Shetland ponies were taken underground instead. They have double-layered waterproof coats. They live into their 30s. Each one has an individual passport and is microchipped. Many still live on these islands today, cared for by local breeders who have raised them for generations. Standing among them, I felt a joy that was completely uncomplicated, the kind of joy that travel gives back to you when you stop trying to find it. We have been looked after extraordinarily well by the officers and crew of the Viking Neptune throughout this journey. A few things we can do to make their job easier and show our appreciation. Note the names of crew members who made a difference and mention them specifically on the review form. That recognition matters deeply to their careers. If you notice something that could be improved, say so early, not on the last day when nothing can be done. And simply take a moment to say thank you. Call them by name. They work long hours far from their families. That simple human gesture means more than you might think. Bergen, our final port. What a beautiful city to end on. We had been here before on a previous Viking cruise, the Viking Homelands. This time we chose the Dala of Norway factory excursion. And if you have ever admired the beautiful patterned knitwear on Viking ships and wondered where it comes from, this is the answer. Dala of Norway has been in continuous production since 1879, over 140 years of unbroken craftsmanship, official Olympic knitwear outfitter since the 1956 Winter Olympics. Our guide had worked here for 30 years. His pride in this place was visible in every word. Walking the factory floor, hearing the machinery, watching those hands at work, you understand immediately why these sweaters are what they are. The production here is small compared to factories in other countries, but the deep investment in design, the connection to tradition, the commitment to quality, that is what makes a Dala sweater unlike anything else. Tradition is not the opposite of innovation. It is the root of it. The store offers 50 to 70% discounts on selected items. Then, just as we settled back on the coach, the store staff came on board with gift bags for every passenger. Inside, a chocolate bar and a Garmisch hat, Dala of Norway's iconic wool beanie. That simple act of generosity finished the excursion perfectly. Traveling with Viking is not just about the excursions. The ship itself is a destination, full of experiences you cannot find on shore. The Bayeux Tapestry Tour with the onboard historian. The engine room tour, seeing how the ship is powered. The galley tour, discovering how every meal is prepared before it reaches your table. And the kitchen table cooking class, preparing an entire dinner with the chef, building friendships over 3 courses, and wine pairing. Some of the most memorable moments of this voyage happened without ever leaving the ship. And that is our highlights of this incredible journey. There are so many other precious moments that happen each day, waiting for you to discover on your own. If this voyage is calling you, I am happy to help. My contact details are in the description. Travel well, travel wisely, and never stop exploring.